Love and Longing. Stop fretting, you two. I've done this before. I've changed more diapers than merely yours, my daughter. Go on and get things done. Sayonwar chides them both as they fuss over the little girls. Besides, it's nearly nap time, so I've brought a good book to keep myself entertained in the big, bad forest. All right, it's just first-time parents, Sayonwar says, shaking her head and grabbing Vernon around the shoulders before turning him around and shoving him. All right, Miro dear, follow your silly man outside as I shove him out the door. Honestly, you two, I appreciate just how doting you are as parents, but I've had more broods of children than you have children. Beloved daughter or not, Mira Noir isn't my first or even 50th daughter, Sayonwar assures him, and you've only laid maybe 20 eggs in your life. Mira Noir notes. 22. Sayonwar replies even as the unresisting Vernon is shoved out the front door to his dark forest home. I've also helped raise all my sister's daughters, and even if that only counts for 1 in 20, it all adds up to more than 50 other girls before you Miro my daughter. Come on, my dear, we'll be back soon enough. But first, to Gurin, Vernon states as he holds out a hand her. Then they're gone in a woodwalk. Chia Noir lets out an amused huff. Battle princess or not, sorcerer or not, I've still got a few edges over the next generation. She then digs out one of the several books she brought with her. This one is battered, old, well-read, and even more loved. Now then, my dear granddaughters, who would like to hear their mother's favorite story growing up? All right, judging from the map, we're about a kilometer away from Hart Guran's palace. Vernon notes about a minute after he and Miro Noir had stepped out of an unusually lush portion of a public park. If the public knew just how far the dark forest had actually spread, they'd be terrified. But tiny little copses were all over the entire planet at this point. Individual seeds and spores could be easily carried into the stratosphere, and the wind current spread them far and wide with ease. A rainstorm later, and you had a few blades of grass or tiny bits of fungus that couldn't be burnt and ensured the plants around them grew stronger. The forest was clever like that. It understood the need for subtlety, even if its intentions and wrath were about as subtle as the sky falling. It also meant that it could get sorcerers from anywhere, and they could be anywhere as well, which really scared the hell out of people. It's a short walk for Vernon and Miro Noir to find their way to the entrance of Hart Guran's palace. It has a large gate with numerous skulls along the topmost tines and down the wall on spikes. It has a courtyard without any cover but numerous little decorations that would slow down and trip up an approaching army. It was clearly a beautified fortress and not a place simply built to display wealth. It could withstand a siege, especially if the bases on the ornamental statues to the extreme sides were actually shield generators as Miro Noir suspected. They find themselves face down with a guardswoman that's clearly paid to be stoic and intimidating, but also recognizes both of them and is intimidated herself. That the woman is refusing to break or even act on her emotions is actually laudable. She may not have the self-assured serenity of a battle princess or the ironclad confidence of an undaunted, but both can respect her will. Guardswoman, what must we do to make a proper appointment with Duke Hart Guran? Vernon asks, and her gaze flicks to him oddly. Nothing, battle princesses are representatives of the Empress. She and her representatives are free to visit her nobles at all times. The guardswoman says, I know, I was just being polite. Thank you, the guardswoman says. I've already signaled for a replacement. If you're willing to wait for a minute, I will gladly show you in and announce you to my Lord Duke. Of course. Thank you for your services, guardswoman, Miro Noir says in a friendly tone, and there's a strange twitch from her. Dear woman, I'm not going to hurt you. I have no cause to, even if I were inclined to pointless violence. Then, Princess Miro Noir. Yes? If I bring you a war sword, would you be willing to sign it? the guardswoman asks. Of course, I'd be honored to. It's good to know that my efforts have inspired others. It means that there will be future comrades in arms to fight beside, Mironoir says happily. Thank you. I've been slowly building a collection with my friends of all princesses. Oh, then is Harley Yaren a friend of yours? Actually, she's part of a rival group. We have a running bet on who'll have the best collection by the end of the year, the guardswoman says, and Mironoir lets out a dainty giggle at the idea. Well, we all need hobbies, Vernon notes as he spots another guard on approach. And what does a sorcerer have for a hobby? Well, a lot of us have the dark forest backing us up, so we find ways to make our hobbies into jobs. The Dread Moss loves to garden and brew and owns a vineyard. I'm intrigued by Axiom, so I'm a researcher on top of a soldier and more. Vernon remarks just before the relieving guardswoman comes close enough that the guard they're with turns to regard her. Take over my post, Princess Mironoir and her husband request an audience with Duke Hartgaron, the guardswoman says, and her relief sighs before nodding. Of course, she says, and takes a position next to the first guard. This way, please, the first guardswoman says, and she leads them to the small door in the gate that the other guard had come from. So, does your lord get much in the way of guests? Vernon asks as she leads them through the front yard. Not anymore. There was an enormous number of visitors when he first assumed the throne after the incident. However, the young lord proved himself to have either a face or heart of stone and rebuffed all who came to bring him comfort. It was such a tragedy to have so many of the Guren family destroyed in a single incident. There is a danger to traveling between the stars. Rare though it may be, some pirates lay in waiting in the darkness there. Rare still are the ones that simply lay mines and then swoop in to collect the wreckage. It earns far too much ire and pays far too lowly for most to consider it a worthwhile investment, the guardswoman says. And considering that Duke Hartgaron's only response was to put a bounty on the heads of each pirate and then letting them rot to nothingness on top of the gate when he got them. Are those the ones still up there? Vernon asks as they reach the front door and they're led into the palace itself. They take an immediate left and are led down a hallway with numerous little tables and shelves holding old artifacts, just a hint at just how ancient the Guren family is. They are. Lord Guren states they are to remain there in penance until they have the strength of character to remove themselves. He has, however, agreed to allow the gate to be cleaned beneath them so long as they are placed back in their rightful positions afterwards. I heard there were complications. Only at first we had to double up in 2 or 3 places, to say nothing of the ones brought to us alive. It was a pirate ship after all. It had a crew in the hundreds, the guardswoman says. It was a terrible thing to see the young lord in those days. Before he grew into himself, he seemed so brittle, hard, but brittle. Now he's grown stronger. You helped raise him then. He was 13 at the time. By some traditions, a man already, the guardswoman says. But yes, many of the staff and the guard here, we cannot forget when he was left alone, standing by himself, so lost, so very small. He was a dash away from going to the forest then. Vernon remarks, and the guardswoman stops and levels her weapon at him. I will not be having my lord dragged into that dirty, dark, and dreadful place, she declares, and Vernon covers his hand in Axiom before resting his palm in the tip of her war spear. Calm yourself. I am not here to bring him to the forest. I am here to ask his help, and if not his help, then his wisdom, Vernon states. Ajeka, thank you. That is enough. A new voice states, and from behind a nearby cabinet a formally dressed Apuk man steps out. His hair is short and combed back. His stance is stern and strong. His eyes meet both Mironoir's and Vernon's without flinching. I'm sorry, my lord, I tried to get more information, however. Ajeka begins to apologize and he holds his hand up. I've heard more than enough. You have served well. Hartguren says. His eyes are slate gray as he overlooks both Miro Noir and Vernon. Both of you, come with me, please. The sooner your business with me is finished, the sooner I may return to proper work. Of course, Vernon says, before both him and Miro Noir are led another 2 doors down by the Duke, and he shows them into his office. This is one of several throughout the palace, he says. There's a strange deadness to his tone. He either feels nothing or is holding back everything. He sits at the office chair and his hands go into his lap mechanically. Now, what do you want? Vernon glances to Miro Noir. He wasn't sure what he was expecting, but someone who seems dead to the world was not it. 2 feuding families in Alranath are about to take things to the next level and need to be de-escalated, Miro Noir explains, and an eyebrow is raised a fraction. Executions generally work when a feud goes much too far, he states. It hasn't yet, which is the problem. Both families now have sorcerers in their number, Miro Noir says, and both eyebrows go up. He glances at Vernon. Do you confirm this, Mr. Sorcerer? He asks, and Vernon nods. I see. That's an enormous amount of potential collateral. It gets worse, Vernon states. How so? Simply put, the forest will not allow sorceress infighting, which means that in the worst-case scenario, all 6 new sorcerers lose their families and then direct their rage at the society that encouraged and supported the self-destruction, making all of Surbo a potential target to enraged sorcerers. It's something that can be contained, but it will be an enormous risk to every single community on the planet and all the people living here. And with how long sorcerers have been known to hold grudges, and how ludicrously difficult it is to kill a sorcerer, Hartguren states before lapsing into thought. Do you intend to relocate one of the families here? We do. What profession do they generally hold? Beyond their rivalry for the opposite, what is the criminal record of the families? They're traditionally military, however. Due to their poor standing in Alranath, they're unable to continue their old traditions. Which gives me a potential bribe, Hartguren states plainly. It will not come free for these people. The risk is enormous. Not only are the families volatile, but they're possessing of at least 1 sorcerer within it, which means that if a quarrelsome family finds another family to be quarrelsome with, even if they completely forget about the other family the moment they step on my lands, they will simply start again, and I'll have an enraged sorcerer on my land in short order. And what does knowing they were both once former nobility do? Vernon asks, and Hartguren taps at his chin in deep thought. That former? Lost standing and everything? Yes. How eager are they to regain their standing? They both keep multiple copies of the documents declaring their noble status. Of course, they're only technically nobility, with so many resources going into the feud and staying out of prison. Impoverished and eager patricians. That is very interesting, Hartguren says as he sinks into his chair and his eyes lose their flatness. The man's mind is almost visibly working behind his eyes. I also understand that you are lacking a strong military, so this would be a blooded, proud, and eager force to recruit. If likely undisciplined, but discipline can be taught and trained, Hartguren says almost absently. Yes, I think this will be of aid to me, but I will be putting numerous stipulations to prevent this feud from starting again. A military eager to prove itself, and even just 1 sorcerer being protective of that active military means that if they're fighting a defensive battle, then reinforcements and reprisal will be fierce indeed. See the opportunity? We not only prevent bloodshed, but make use of violent people's own inclinations. I do. I very much do, Hartguren says, rising up again. His eyes lose none of the interest, though. Very well. I will draft documents and edicts of repatriation. Should they be willing to swear an oath of loyalty to me and mine, then they shall be welcomed in my duchy. We have several abandoned estates dating back several centuries. The ceilings are gone and the walls are suspect, but the foundations are even more secure than the surrounding mountains. Excellent. With their children forced out of this cycle of nonsense due to the dark forest, their former home casting them out and their new homes having contracts to keep them from attacking each other, this may very well kill the feud, Mironoir says happily. May kill the feud, Battle Princess. May. It does not serve to underestimate the stupidity of others. Most features in common household objects are there because the average individual is too dim to use it properly. Duke Hart Guran reminds her. Either way, this is about as solid a step as we can take to end the feud without truly going to ridiculous lengths. If these women value their families at all, then they will let the anger die. Vernon notes. I agree. Of course, I'll also be speaking with Baroness Uth Tyr and Queen Tiavias. Duchess Mirquen, actually. The families live in the Quen Duchy, and that is where they will be exiled from if everything goes well. I see. Thank you for this opportunity, Princess Sorcerer. However, I must ask you to leave now so I don't break propriety when I begin actually working rather than speaking about it. Of course. Thank you for your time and your help, Mironoir says elegantly as she rises up. Vernon rises as well with a respectful nod. As they turn to leave, the door is opened by Ajeka. As she escorts them out, she's almost vibrating, and it's only when they've left the grounds entirely does she finally brings out the sword and asks, "Could you please sign this, princess?" she asks, holding up the gilded war sword. Mironoir obliges with her finger covered in green warfire to melt and carve her name into the flat of the blade at the same time.